Hey everybody, and welcome back to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to build a complete accounts payable module, and we're going to be using something called an autofill feature, where it allows you to select one variable within your form and have a bunch of other fields automatically populate. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to pull in, we're going to import two tables from our external data. And I've made a couple of Excel tables. One is just going to be a chart of accounts, and the other one is going to be a list of suppliers. For anybody watching that doesn't, can make up your own tables. There's not much to it. I will show you where these tables are and what they look like. Okay, so the first one's going to be a chart of accounts. We're going to import that. Okay, that looks good. And there's only, a couple of items here. We have an account number, and then we just have a description, which is sales, expenses, assets, liabilities, just on a simple spreadsheet. And of course, anytime you're importing any tables from Excel, you want to make sure that you check this first row contains column headings so that this becomes the headings. Otherwise, you're going to run into some real problems. That's fine. And I'm going to allow access to add its own primary key. That's fine too. And import to table, we'll just call it chart of accounts, table. And close. Okay, so we've got that there. And I'm going to go into design view now, just make a modification on it. Okay, and we'll call this, rather than leaving it ID, we'll call it chart of accounts ID. Account number and description, we will leave it as it is, and we'll save it and close it. And then we'll pull in the next table, which will be just a list of suppliers that we're going to use. It too is also on an Excel file. And we can see if we can find that here. Let's try vendors. I'm not sure if that's the table that I want, but we'll stick with it anyway. Yep, this works. Okay, again, I'm going to check my first row. And again, you can make something up yourself. You just need 3 columns on an Excel sheet. You want the company name. You can list various companies. I've got Bell Canada, some utility companies, an address, and then just a city. Go next. I'm going to let, again, I'll let Access add the primary key so that each supplier will have a unique ID number, which is always a good idea because if you end up with suppliers with very similar names, you're going to want to have a unique identifier in all your tables. And we'll call this supplier table. Oops, there we go. And we'll finish that. Okay, and close. Now I'm going to open up this supplier table and go into design view. I want to make some modifications to it. So to go into design view again, for those of you who don't know, we can go to the home tab under view and go to design view. Now you can make these changes in the datasheet view as well. I just find this is much easier to deal with, and it's easier to see your data types and organize your tables as you need them. So we're just going to call this supplier ID. Okay. And that's his company name. I'm just going to change this to supplier name just so we have some consistency here. Supplier name, address, city. I'm going to add some other fields here because I'm going to want them to fill in for me automatically. I want a postal code, and I want, well, the postal code I'm going to leave as a short text. I want a telephone number. And perhaps I'll leave that a short text as well. And maybe I want an email address for my suppliers as well as a short text. Okay. And we'll save. And we'll close it. Now, I'm going to want to fill in some of those fields. So I'm going to very quickly create a form for my suppliers. I go here and create form wizard. Okay, and I'm going to select my supplier table. I'm going to want all these fields in here. Move it over. And I'm going to want a datasheet view. And select next. And what do I want to call this? Well, we'll call it supplier form. And your forms are something that the end user will actually use to fill in data when they're using your system. You don't want to have end users having access to your tables. And we'll select finish. Okay. I'm going to close that, and you can see now we have forms and we have supplier form. Now, by default, what happens with Access is even in a form, when you open up a form, it automatically opens up in a datasheet view, and what you really want is you want it to open up in a form view. So what you can do here is you can select the property sheet as it comes up. You can go to Format, and if you see here, it says Default View, Datasheet. So just click anywhere in that field. You'll see your little drop-down menu. And then from there, you want to select Single Form, and then Save, and close the form. I'll close this table while I'm at it as well. Now when we reopen the form, we get it in form view, and this is what we want. So all I want to do here is I just want to put in some data for postal codes and phone numbers. T7, and I'm going to just, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to copy it onto 3, because I don't want to take a whole bunch of time putting in data here, but I do want to have a few things populate so that when I show you how we use the autofill feature, that's going to save a lot of time for you. You'll see how that actually operates. Okay, I'll use the same phone number. Whoops. Copy that over to the other 2 fields. Again, guys, all I'm doing here is I'm just putting redundant data in these first few fields, just so you can see the effect of the autofill when we set it up. Okay, for an email address, anything I like, that works. Okay, and we'll just copy it over to 2 more, and then we can get right on it. There. And there. Okay, so I'm going to save my form now and close it. And now if I go back to my table just to show you, you'll notice now, even though I've used my form, you can see here that it's automatically updated our table. Okay, and that's the wonderful thing about using an excellent functional database management system. Everything's tied together. So again, you don't want your end users having access to your table because they can reconfigure everything, change data types, and make a mess. They would use a form, but knowing that as they use the form, it's automatically updating our data tables as well. I'm going to save that, and we're going to get right into creating our accounts payable module. Now to create the module, we're going to have a main form that's going to have things like the bill number, the date, customer information, all that. And then there's going to be a subform contained inside of that that is going to have information about what we're buying. The type of item that we're buying, perhaps the quantity, the price, a discount for getting a discount, a line total, a subtotal, and taxes, and so on and so forth. Now, there's going to be one other table I'm going to want to pull in here quickly, and it's a table with a list of employees, because on most of your forms that you're creating within your programs, you're going to want to know who actually inputted and created that document. So I'm going to pull that in really quickly. And again, it's something that you can create yourself on a spreadsheet, or you can just build it right into, you can just build a manual table within Access as well. But I've already got a form in my system that has employee data in it, so I would prefer to use that. I can find it here. Let's try, I can't seem to locate that. All right. Let's see if I've got it in here. Here we go. All right, there's one with some employees on it. Great. Okay, so I've got team members or employees and their email addresses. Again, I'm going to check off the first row. We will select next, next. I'll let, again, Access assign it. We want our employees to have their own ID. And we'll call it Acme Team Table. The program that we're creating is for a fictitious company called Acme. And close. All right, so we've got that in there. All right, so we're going to create our account payable module, first of all, by creating 2 tables manually. So we'll go to Create. We'll select Table. And again, we're going to go to the Design View. And it's going to ask us to name it. So we'll call it AP Table. And that will be for our main form that we're going to use to create a query to create the autofill feature. And everything's in here. So the first thing that we're going to want to have is we're going to have a system that's going to generate automatic purchase order numbers for us. So we'll call this purchase order number. And we're going to leave it as an auto number because that way each time you go to a new record, new invoice, Access will automatically create that for you. Now the next thing you're going to want is the bill number, and that would come from your supplier when you pull up the invoice. We'll leave that as a short text. Then we're going to want the date on the bill. Okay, and we'll leave that as, we'll set that up as date and time. And the next thing that we're going to want is, so we're going to want time. We're going to want to have, let's see, we'll want to have the employee. So let's go employee name. And now here's where we're going to use a lookup wizard, and we're going to go find that table, and we'll call it, there's our Acme team table. So we're going to select that, and we're going to pull over the ID and the team members. That's their names. Next. And then from the ascending, we want to choose team members. We want their names. The selection that we make here under the ascending option is what will appear on the drop-down menu in your final form. And here you can see a little sneak preview of what will show up as available names from your table. That works out nicely. And we always want to check enable data integrity so that people can't override that. Want to create a relationship? Yes. And we'll say yes here. Okay, so we've got our employee name, we've got our bill date, we've got our number there. And now the last thing we're going to want is supplier name. Supplier name. And we're going to create another lookup from using our lookup wizard because we're going to go over to our supplier table and we're going to pull the name of that supplier table to put it in our accounts payable table. So we'll allow the query here. And we'll select supplier table. Next. And again, we'll pull over the ID and the supplier name. When we go to the next field from the ascending, we're going to select the supplier name because that's what's going to appear on our drop-down menu in our final form. We'll select next. And you can see here's a list of our suppliers that will appear. And we'll check enable data integrity. And we'll finish that. Yes. Now what we can do here, I'm going to save it again. We want to check our relationships. We can go to make sure everything's connected correctly. We can go to our database tools here and we can select relationships. And now you can see the 3 tables that we've created and the relationships between these tables. So here's our accounts payable table that we've just created. And we've got a relationship between the accounts payable table and the supplier table. And you can see that there's a one-to-many relationship. So in other words, one supplier, okay, can provide many products, okay, which is great. And we've also got a relationship created between our team member table, our employee table, and our accounts payable table. And again, we have a one-to-many. So one employee can create lots of bill numbers, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, I'm going to stop here at part 1. We'll call this part 1. We're going to do this in 3 parts because there's quite a bit to go through, and this may allow you to navigate through these videos a little bit easier, so you can stop and rewind and do whatever you need to do. Rewind, pause, and back it up in case you want to review anything. So we'll pause this for now and come back and join me on the part 2 and part 3. We'll see you soon.